Hello, my beautiful babies, and welcome to session 6 of Chapterhouse Dune Club. This is the last episode of the last book of our last Dune Club. Oh my gosh, everyone, give yourself a round of applause for getting through all 6 of Frank Herbert's books. Wow, what a journey that we've been on together, and I am very pleased and proud to have gone on this trip with you all. This has been a wonderful experience, and thank you for sticking around. Because again, I'm surprised every time I do another one. I'm like, oh, well, enough people want to show up, and here you are. We made it. We went all the way, baby. We went all the way. So thank you out there to everyone who has participated. For this session, you need to read pages 504 through 609. And the last sentence of the last chapter, it's really an afterword, is I consider that to be my great good fortune and most miraculous privilege. And I feel like that about Dune Club. So let's do a little recap first before we dive in. So it's the final session of Chapterhouse Dune Club, and everything has been leading up to this. It's been 500 pages of buildup for this epic clash between the Bene Gesserit and the Honored Matres. This is really, if you want to be real about it, it's more like 1,400 pages of buildup, because this is really, the heretics of Dune is also leading up to all of this. Teg is unleashed upon Gamu while Odrade and company travel to Junction to meet with the Spider Queen. Things take a wild turn when Logno assassinates Dama during her meeting with Odrade, taking the reins as the new Honored Matre as Gamu falls and Junction comes under attack. All Marbella can do is watch the battle unfold from the safety of a no-ship, and is horrified when the Bene Gesserit victory on Junction turns into defeat when the Honored Matres bust out their secret weapon. She single-handedly turns the tides when she flies to Junction and infiltrates the Honored Matres under the guise that she was captured and is here to turn over the coordinates of the witch's stronghold. In her meeting with the new Great Honored Matre, Marbella easily kills Logno and takes control of the Honored Matres while simultaneously becoming the de facto Reverend Mother Superior. Odrade was killed in the scuffle, but Dar's plan worked. The Bene Gesserit and Honored Matres will combine and forever be changed. Meanwhile, Duncan and Shiana plan their escape and use the no-ship to take off into parts unknown, carrying a hold full of sandworms and everything they need to transform a new planet into another Dune. They also have Miles, Scytail, the Rabbi's people, and the Futars in tow. All right, here we go. Chapter 40, Action. This chapter starts with a great header. Ultimately, all things are known because you want to believe you know. It was when I was at this college Christmas party, I started talking to this professor of German philosophy. And I busted out that Dune knowledge on him. We were talking philosophy. And I was like, in Dune, it says ultimately all things are known because you believe. You want to believe you know. Teg is in his no-ship, and Gamu is dead ahead. And it is fucking go time. He's wearing his horseshoe comm link that goes around his neck, and he has a floating comm board under his hands, kind of like a death piano, like a piano of violence. Things get started when he calls for his aides to send in the decoys, and the Bashar then becomes the instrument of his instruments. As the decoys approach Gamu's defensive perimeter, Miles uses his secret power to sense no ships and superimposes this awareness over the locations of his own ships. Every order he gave must appear to originate from the battle plot they all shared. He felt thankful Marbella had not joined him. Any Reverend Mother might see through his deception, but no one had questioned Odrade's order that Marbella wait with her party at a safe distance. Or I guess no one had questioned Miles' order. It wasn't Odrade's order, it was Miles' order. That she wait with her party at a safe distance. Gamu starts firing laser guns at the decoys, but these decoys are carrying shields by created by Duncan's little mini Holzman generators that he invented in our last session, and explosions are going off all around the planet. So when a laser gun hits a shield, it's a real big explosion. Miles looks at all of this and pretends to see a pattern, and he announces it to his crew. There was no such pattern, but his words created belief, and pulses quickened. No one questioned the Bashar had seen vulnerability, sending his ships forward in a blazing display that littered space behind them with enemy fragments. Miles' flagship mops up surviving perimeter guards, and he sends in more decoys. Streggy is struck by the scene, calling it oddly romantic. Something primitive about the death and destruction being created here. This was a moment cut out of normal order, a disturbing return to ancient tribal patterns. She sensed the tom-tom in her breast and voices chanting, "Kill, kill, kill." It's like, oh, oh. Panic is spreading amongst the defenders. Teg and the crew land on a flat to the north in Barony and disgorge troops and take off again to the safety of space. He commands his soldiers to clear the top of the monstrous rectangular building at Barony's center, where all the elite live, but keep damage as minimal as possible to the rest of the structure where all of their captors and their slaves live. The battle is going better than expected. Ground crews are kicking major ass, and Duncan's assertion that Honored Matres would not expect a bold attack such as this, and that they keep their heavy weaponry off planet, has proven true. Beans, don't just let me just put a little face on my camera. Let me see your ear, Bean. Oh, you're so sweet. They've used their decoys on planet too, putting shields on suspensors hidden in inflated soldiers' uniforms that go out before the real troops. And when they get hit, they produce clean atomic level explosions that clear out huge areas. Teg wonders if Junction will be this easily defeated as well. If your weapons cost only a small fraction of the energy your enemy spent, you had a potent lever that could prevail against seemingly overwhelming odds, prolong the conflict, and you wasted enemy substance. Your foe toppled because control of productions and workers was lost. As Teg starts to command, they begin to pull out. As Teg starts to command that they begin to pull out, Marbella interrupts his transmission to countermand his order. A field commander has refugees asking for asylum, and it's the rabbi and his people. Teg is about to blow off their request when Marbella overrides his comm board and commands that they take in the refugees and bring them to the flagship. The Bashar is outraged at her interference and yells at Marbella, but she tells him that he does not have the proper data to make this decision. The rabbi is well within his rights, so prepare to receive him with honors. And when he asks for an explanation, Marbella blows him off and tells him to stand by to receive the rabbi and herself shortly. Teg is mega pissed, but she assures him that this request demands a Reverend Mother's attention. So you need to accept it, Miles Teg, or you need to step down. He accepts it. And he asks her to kindly get the fuck off of his screen because she is blinding him. The battle projections resume battle status. As soon as the situation is secure, he rides Streggy over to check out these very important refugees. As he approaches, he witnesses a rabbi berating Rebecca, accusing her of the sin of pride in her Bene Gesserit knowledge. Stregi and Miles watch this weird fight to its conclusion. Marbella enters and addresses Rabbi, "In the name of the Bene Gesserit and our debt to you, I welcome you and give you sanctuary." Rebecca lowers her hand, shading her eyes, and lifts her head to reveal the blue within blue eyes of a wild Reverend Mother. "I am called Rebecca, and I am filled with joy to be with you. The rabbi thinks I am a silly goose, but I have a golden egg, for I carry Lampadas, 7,622,014 Reverend Mothers, and they are rightfully yours." Whew. Man, we finally got the Lampadas horde. Oh, it's been a whole thing, and I'm glad we made it. I'm glad we've saved those Reverend Mothers and other memory. Chapter 41, Deliberate Interference. Answers are a perilous grip on the universe. They can appear sensible, yet explain nothing. This really mirrors the other header. Ultimately, all things are known because you want to believe you know. It's like, we really don't know anything. Like, we think we know. We want to believe that we know. But it's like, when it gets down to it, we really don't understand like anything about how this reality works. Like, we don't know. We have theories. We have ideas. But we don't really know. And so in keeping with that, answers are a perilous grip on the universe. They can appear sensible and yet explain nothing. The game of Western philosophy, and this reminded me of like an Alan Watts quote. The game of Western philosophy and science is to trap the universe in the networks of words and numbers, so that there is always the temptation to confuse the rules or laws of grammar and mathematics with the actual operations of nature. So it's like we get all caught up in our little words and our little numbers, and we confuse those for reality every day. I love Alan Watts. I think he's great. I told that philosophy professor, I was like, I love Alan Watts. He was like, oh. Back on Junction. Odrade, Tam, Dortulia, and Sweeple are still waiting for their escort. This is like my favorite part of this session. It's so funny. At first, Odrade becomes angry at this obvious insult, just making them wait in this lobby. Haha, fuck you, bitch. She's just like, ugh. But then she finally becomes amused by this juvenile tactic by the Honored Matres. And so she takes the offensive and starts interfering with the small robots that are going around the lobby, the little things that are cleaning stuff up or whatever the fuck, they're just like these little robos all around. They were so commonplace that few people noticed them. And since they were not capable of dealing with deliberate interference, they subsided into motionless humming. So she just starts like standing in front of them and just like getting in their way. And then they just get so flustered. They just like, they just break down and they're just like, I don't know what to do. And this is such a hilarious troll move towards the Honored Matres, illustrating how easily she is able to disrupt their so-called order. She's also poking at the vulnerability in, creating and employing unthinking machines and pointing out the fallacy of encouraging an unthinking society of slaves. So it's like, okay, so if you're, you want to use these little, robos, unthinking machines, and then you're also creating people who essentially are the same as you want people to just do this little job and that's it. You're a bureaucracy. Like, I can fuck your whole thing up, ladies. Dortulia and Sweeple get a kick out of this display. And Odrade stops Sweeple from joining in the fun, trying to keep the Honored Matres' ire focused on herself and not on her acolyte. After making her point, it's time for phase 2 of trolling. Dar asks Tam to come over, and the two subtly take a dig at the Honored Matre's shitty little lobby, just talking shit about their tiny lobby. And finally, an auto receptionist, a black phallic tube of plaz with a cyclopean calm eye, approaches the Mother Superior and tries to make small talk with its soupy feminine voice. O'Drade asks, why do they have to program these mechanicals to simulate friendly humans? This is how I feel about Alexa and Siri. I hate it. Like, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to pretend like they're my bro or something. Like, it is fucked up. And Tam agrees. She thinks that it is obscene. She forcibly shoulders the auto receptionist aside, and it swivels to study the source of this intrusion, but made no other move. So Tam just like pushes it. Like, it's so funny. I love their disdain for the robos. 4 more robos carrying their luggage enter, and it's a domino effect of chaos. These new mechanicals are disrupted by the disrupted robos that O'Drade has humming, and they're rendered motionless, and they don't know what to do because they're like, wait a minute, why are these guys stopped here? I can't go around them. Fuck, what do I do? And so they stop, and it's just like, oh, it's so good. And it's time for more games. O'Drade speaks, there go the signs of the transient concealing our secret selves. And they, she knows that they're being watched, they're being recorded, they're being listened to. And Tam joins Dar in fucking with their watchers unconscious, confusing them by using buzzwords, throwing them off balance with their Bene Gesserit word play. Tam talks directly to the calm eyes like she's talking to a small child. What do you carry when you leave your nest? Are you one who tries to pack it all, or do you prune to necessities? Dortulia joins them, commenting on what an ugly place this is. It's so fucking ugly you think that somebody must have deliberately made it this way. The Watchers must be freaked out that Dortulia has returned and appears unconcerned, knowing that they tortured this lady, they killed her companions, they fed her companions to the futars in front of her, and they're like, she's back? And she's got jokes? Like, oh my God. Dar and Dortulia discuss how the ugliness of the room betrays its intent, that it is a way stop that will provide the bare minimum for human comfort because it really doesn't want you to hang around. It just wants the energy that you leave behind. O'Drade speaks directly to the auto receptionist's eye and commands it to send them to their quarters immediately. And in less than a minute, they are on their way before they cause any more chaos in the lobby. So they're like, okay, you're right. We got to get these ladies out of this lobby. They're fucking up this whole thing. we gotta take them to their room. But it's like they're already being tested, and then they're already letting them know, like, look, test me all you want, bitch. I'm going to fuck your shit up. They follow their guide pulsar, which is like this little round blue ball with a yellow arrow floating in it that points like the way to their room. And then it like rings when they arrive. And I was just thinking like, man, that's fucking awesome. I want like a little blue ball that just has an arrow and it just like, I just follow the arrow around. I would really enjoy that. And while they're going towards their room, they pass entire shuttered wings of this building. And finally, they get to their rooms, another place where their hosts had provided every luxury while keeping it repellent. But at least there are no chair dogs, but they wouldn't have them there because they're expensive and they need sustenance and expensive staff. O'Drade has requested a hard mat to sleep on, and the Honored Matres have responded by providing a flat surface of black plaz without cushion or bedding. She keeps quiet about it, though, knowing that if she objects, it's only going to encourage the Honored Matres to further antagonize her. Which is just like, yes, You know, have you ever like been in a situation where you know that if you just like, if you say anything, if you're like, I don't like this, you're just giving these people more ammo to use against you. So you just have to like shut down and just shut up and like be like, I'm not going to give you anything to use against me. A voice pipes into the room. Return to the lobby where you will meet your escort to the great honored maitre. Odrade chooses to go alone, and a green-robed woman is in the lobby and leads her to a room that is staged to look like an action center. Dama and Logno enter, and Odrade is surprised by the Spider Queen's appearance. Her small, stringy body with a forgettable face and bland eyes that you would have trouble remembering. It was a face in which you had difficulty finding a central focus, and thus the entire thing became blurred. And the showdown begins. These two, I really enjoyed this chapter so much. Dama asks, so you lead the Bene Gesserit? Odrade asks, how should I address you? I hear you call me the Spider Queen. Here at the center of your web and considering your vast powers, I'm afraid I must confess it. So that is what you notice. My powers. It's like, oh, you fucking vain bitch. But actually, the first thing that Dar noticed was Dama's outrageous perfume. The Spider Queen tells Mother Superior that she may call her Dama, and Logno objects. This is the last enemy of the million planets. Odrade thinks on the viciousness that she sees in Logno and how it kind of reminds her of Belanda. And I was like, oh, that's so... I should have caught that earlier. The mirroring. How, you know, I talk about how there's so much mirroring going on. And it's like, oh, yeah. Dama's aide is like an honored maitre version of Belanda. Like, yes, that makes so much sense. Also, the Million Planets. What a cool scattering name for the old empire. Very neat. Even though it's actually technically more than 1,000,000 planets, but it's great branding. Dama explains that the honor that she has just conferred upon Odrade by allowing her to use her name. She orders that they walk outside while they talk, and Odrade comments on Dama's perfume, which is an identity marker for her frame bush. Otherwise, the bush would not have accepted her. And God, I just wish we had more about frame bush houses. Even though I did catch a typo. It says flame bush. It should be frame bush, but whatever. I wish we had more about the bushes. I will forever want to know more about frame bushes. Dama unconsciously has been adjusting her accent for Odrade. Good ear spends a few seconds watching, listening, and adjusts to make herself understood. Very old art form that most humans adopt quickly. Odrade saw the origins as protective coloration. Don't want to be taken for an alien. And that's something I find myself doing as well if I'm ever, say I'm in the South and I'm around a bunch of people who have a Southern accent, like, you know, my accent will come out. But then if I'm like it's like wherever I'm at, I kind of, and it's like unconscious. It's not something that I'm like thinking about doing. It just starts happening. But it is an old art form for sure. When in Rome, do what the Romans do. Oh, hey, bitch puddin'. What's up? Hey. Let's see. Where was I? So the two women get down to business. Odrade points out what little value she has as a hostage, since the Bene Gesserit have 3 replacements ready for her. She warns the great honored maitre that it's possible for them to weaken each other in ways that could destroy them both. Dama denies this, and Dar makes a gamble. Do you think us unaware of how you were driven back here by your enemies? She did this a lot in our last book, Heretics, and so did Terraza. They're both really good at this, where they're like, I don't really know, but I'm going to act like I know. And then your response is going to tell me everything I need to know and either confirm this or not for me. We could leave you vulnerable to those who assail you, who drove you into this cul-de-sac. The Spider Queen confirms this theory, stating the honor maitres are merely gathering their forces before they return. Dama takes Odrade to her quarters to continue their conversation. And thank you, Bitch Puddin', for the gift subs. Thank you so much. Thank you. gift of your moisture for our final Dune Club. They get to Dama's, room, and the great honored matre kicks off her sandals and goes barefoot upon entering. And I like that Odrade follows her lead and also takes off her shoes. And it's like so funny thinking of the Mother Superior and the great honored matre, like, oh, all right, let's just take off our shoes and hang out. Let's go to my room. Odrade also notices, though, that the woman, Dama, has like deadly fucking feet. They are now in an undecorated workroom, but the Mother Superior really wants to see where Dama actually lives to get a better sense of this woman. She reflects on how the great honored matre is truly dangerous, but this woman has the power to say yes. It was an ancient Bene Gesserit insight. You looked for the ones who could say yes. Never bother with underlings who can only say no. You sought the one who could make an agreement, sign a contract, pay off on a promise. Spider Queen did not often say yes, but she had the power and knew it. That is definitely something in your dealings. Look for the people who can say yes in this world. Odrade wonders if she has a chance at negotiating with this woman, and if she's made a mistake by unleashing Teg upon Gamu. She sees the great honored matre working at a golden table. Dama appears agitated. Has the attack on Gamu been successful? The Spider Queen asks about Clairby blowing himself up, and the Mother Superior says it's a part of her Deathground strategy. No retreat. And how they didn't want him to get caught and give up the coordinates of Chapterhouse. Dama is impressed and doesn't understand how Odrade gets her people to obey her to the point of blowing themselves up without enslaving them through sexual bondage. Dar stalls for time, asking why they agreed to have this meeting. It seems so out of character. What is it about us that interests you? You think we find you interesting? Perhaps you even find us remarkable, because that is certainly how we look at you. The exotic interests the exotic. I knew you would be fascinated by us. Again, Dama's pride is like cracks me up every time. Dama goes to a window and motions for Dar to come join her, and touches an unmarked place on the wall, and it folds back. Surprise! The window was just a projection. It's not really a window, but there is a high balcony behind the wall overlooking a wild garden that's just been left to its own devices. This confirms the Mother Superior's suspicion that these adrenaline addicts actually revel in chaos. On the balcony, she sees a life-sized figure shaped from an ethereal substance. As it moves in the breeze, it morphs from looking masculine one moment to feminine the next. It appears to dance, relapsing sometimes into a graceful walk, then a slow pirouette and sweeping turns with outstretched leg. Something about it reminds Dar of Shiana's void sculpture. Dama says it is called Ballet Master. In some winds, it will kick its feet high. I have seen it running as gracefully as a marathoner. Sometimes it is just ugly little motions, arms jerking as though they held weapons. Beautiful and ugly, it is all the same. I think the artist misnamed it. Being unknown would have been better. Beautiful and ugly, all the same. Being unknown. That was the terrible thing about Shiana's creation. It's the wild thing no one can govern. Odrade tries to offer similarities between the Honored Matres and the Bene Gesserit, which Dama hotly denies, despite the truth that Honored Matres were formed by fish speakers and Reverend Mothers and extremists. Reforming her approach, Dar gets Dama talking, and the woman reveals that the Honored Matres are most interested in the Bene Gesserit power of immunity. The small woman wants this, and yet makes no offer of alliance. Odrade silently wonders if a biological attack was what drove them here, and feels good about unleashing Teg on Gamu after all. It's like, nope, she's not going to negotiate with me. She's a crazy person. Logno appears with a tray and 2 glasses of golden wine, and Dama assures Dar that it is not poisoned. She takes one sip and Dar detects a substance that is supposed to nullify shear. And the Reverend Mother adjusts her metabolism and renders the substance harmless, and then explains to the two women what she's just done. Hey guys, I taste your stuff in here. I just made it to where it's not going to do anything. Dama is pissed. So that's why this shit never works on any of the witches. And she hurls her glass onto the tiles. Someone will pay for this wasted effort. Dar notices Logno's laser attention on her boss and realizes the aide has poisoned Dama. And if you remember, Logno did say at the beginning of the book that she would poison the Great Honored Matre one day. Dama falls into a heap under being unknown. You will call me a Great Honored Matre, and you will learn to thank me for it. She intended to betray you and exterminate your people. I have other plans. I am not one to destroy a useful weapon at the moment of our greatest need. Logno takes the reins. I'm going to say F in the chat for Dama. F for Dama. I know, Dama realization of why Bene Gesserits never die from poison. She did die pissed. But I mean, honestly, though, Logno did pick the perfect moment to do it, because her attention is so focused on Odrade that she's not even thinking about Logno trying to kill her for just a moment. Because she knows, she is aware that Logno wants to kill her, so she's always on her toes about it. But like in this one moment, she really is having to use 100% of her focus on this Reverend Mother, and that's when she gets her. And then it's also too, it's like, oh my god, you're gonna poison her right in the middle of the big meeting? Like, oh, it's so crazy. It's like these Honor Matres are so wild. I also love being unknown. What a cool description of such a weird statue. I don't want to say statue, I guess I should say like 3D art piece. It's very interesting. I would love to see somebody like interpret that like on screen. I don't think we'll ever see that in a movie, but all right, so let's see here. Chapter 42. Something's very wrong here. Murbella is watching the battle for Junction from off-planet in a no-ship. Odrade's final sign transmissions stopped abruptly, but reports have confirmed that the Great Honored Matre is there. Rebecca is also on the no-ship, sharing the Lampadas horde with other Reverend Mothers. Millions of memory lives, all concentrated in what the Sisterhood called Extremis Progressiva, 2x2, then 4x4, and 16x16, until each held all of them, and any survivor could preserve the precious accumulation. That like makes me think, though, it's like, do they ever just run out of RAM? Like, you can really store like what, like that many lives in your brain? You know, I mean, I guess it's more than in your brain. It's like in your genetic code or something. But again, they're putting their heads together, and I'm just like, they never tap out. Like, they're never like, oh, I'm full. I can't take any more. I can't have any more other lives in here. This is enough. But again, maybe I'm underestimating the storage capacity of the human brain. And they're also, very highly evolved humans too. So, I mean, they're going to be, they're going to have more evolved brains than mine. So Murbella remembers Dar's words on sharing. Once you fully accommodate to the bundles of other memory, all else falls into a perspective that is utterly familiar, as though you had known it always, which I did like that about other memory, where you're not sitting there like, oh, it comes to you every, it's just like, you're just know stuff. You just know stuff intuitively. It doesn't always like come out as like exactly like, oh, when my ancestor in this fucking place did this, and then this is this. It's like, you don't even think about it. It just kind of is in there. The Dar within Murbella, because remember Murbella shared with Odrade, she asks her to ask how she's doing that down there, because it's funny, she's still alive. She's like, ask how I'm doing down there, like I'm in your head, but like I know that like I'm down there, so like ask what's going on. No word, but your transmissions have been blocked by energy shielding. Marbella wonders if O'Drade is really down there as she watches the Honored Matre's defensive perimeter at the Citadel break down. She thinks of the battle as a great circus and hears a woman's voice on the comms. "That bush screamed at me." And a man talking about sticky stuff that burns the skin. Again, more bush stuff. I would like to know more about these alien bushes from the scattering. It screamed at somebody? I need to know more. I didn't ask you to scream at me, Beans. It's talking about the bush screaming. Observing Teg atop Stregi's shoulders, she switches projections to look in the direction that the Bashar is looking. He's lost his command pod along with the comm board, but retains the horseshoe comm link around his shoulders. The Bashar's personal aide, Haker, comes up, and Teg asks him, comes up to Teg to tell him that they have the last pockets of fighting bottled up, and they will be mopping up in half an hour, no more, and that he should finally get out of here. Teg asks where his communications backup is and finds out that both backups were packaged together and got destroyed, but a reserve pod is on the way, and Teg is pissed. He specifically told them no important equipment should be sent together, but whoops, your reserve pod also just got hit, so we're gonna get another one of those too. Teg commands that they use sonics to see if there are underground tunnels leading from the newly constructed tower. Someone comms in to tell the Bashar that there's no sign of the Spider Queen or O'Drade yet. He tells them to keep looking. Right at that moment, O'Drade had Teg directly in her sights from the tower. Great Honored Matre Logno had shielded her vital transmissions since the arrival of the first refugees from Gamu. Seeing inside the tower, the Mother Superior realizes that Dama's workroom was also another set piece. She muses how power climbs physically as well as psychologically. She knows Logno was lying and that Dama's plan was to let her leave unharmed but carrying no useful information, hence the set and the set pieces. There is a sudden burst of noise from beyond the wall, and it sounds like the Bene Gesserit are winning the fight. Dar studies Logno's reaction and is shocked to see her taking it super well and without upset. There's no orange in her eyes when she announces, "You have won this battle. We are your prisoners." Is this a Bene Gesserit mask they are utilizing? O'Drade asks Logno about Tam, Dortulia, and Sweeple and hears that they are dead. Oh, F in the chat. 3 Fs for Tam, Sweeple, and Dortulia. And Dar is, she's sad for all of them, but she's especially sad for Sweeple, who was so young and died unshared. Logno offers to identify the ones responsible if she desires revenge. O'Drade tells her revenge is for children and the emotionally retarded. It's like, I love it. It's like, again, another banger quote. Thank you for that, Frank Herbert. And then she asks Logno, "You do not seem disturbed, Great Honored Matre." And Logno says, "Others will avenge me," essentially confirming that she is emotionally retarded. O'Drade isn't buying it. There's no way that this woman is totally powerless, and all of this has to be a front. Teg finds O'Drade and her captives while looking for a quiet place to assemble all the threads of his battle and make a preliminary summation. He's tried very hard to conduct this battle in a way that did not release human wildness, because, you definitely can't have your soldiers raping Honored Matre captives and whatnot, because that's not going to work. Battle must be conducted to bring out the best in those who survived. Most difficult and sometimes all but impossible. The more remote the soldier from carnage, the more difficult. It was one reason Teg always tried to move to the battle scene to examine it personally. If you did not see the pain, you could easily cause greater pain without second thoughts. And that's something too that you hear about all this drone warfare. And it's just like, well, it's just like a video game. It's like you're not there. you're somewhere else. And then you're just flying some little machine around killing people. It's like a video game. Like, who cares? And Teg's like, that's not good. That's not a great way to conduct battle. Like this. O'Drade introduces their commander to the honored Matre, and Logno recognizes that the Bashar is a Ghola. The captives are taken away, and O'Drade and Teg move to the balcony to view the bloody aftermath. Even though his casualties have been relatively light, Miles still feels a pang of command guilt at seeing the bodies of his men in a setting more suited to a garden party. Teg is also at a loss at this victory. It seems too easy. He asks O'Drade if the Great Honor Matre gave the command for defense to stop, and she assumes yes. But why? Is this a trap? Something is profoundly wrong here. Stregi feels his distress and trembles underneath him. They all sense the danger. Teg orders an aide to get casualty figures ASAP. He turns to view the scene and notices very little blood on his fallen soldiers out in the field and comments to O'Drade, "They have a weapon that we have not discovered." Chapter 43, An Unrestricted Universe. Back on Chapterhouse, Shiana is at the Desert Watch Station and can smell the small worms out there. They smell like cinnamon and flint and brimstone. She's thinking on what is happening to the Sisterhood. First axolotl tanks, now cyborgs, now this. Will O'Drade's plan succeed? They will know perhaps as soon as tomorrow. Earlier, she went out into the sands and danced herself clean. And when she came out of her trance, she found little worms all around her in gaping watchfulness. She wonders on the tyrant's choice to take on the sand trout skin. She could do that too if she wanted, but isn't sure that she wants to go down that road. Remembering Arrakis and the spice blow that got her entire village swallowed whole, she once again asks why she was spared. She asks herself if there is still a pearl of Leto's awareness in these new worms. Her Fremen ancestry and other memory insists, yes, there is. Her aide, Wali, comes by and gives her a sandwich. I love that there's a sandwich in this book. It's just like, oh, sandwiching it up. But I mean, sandwiches, I assume, would be in the future. They would stand the test of time. They are terribly convenient and addictive. I mean, they're delicious. Shiana eats her sandwich while watching the sandscape outside and asks herself what they are really creating on this planet. Yes, sandwich. Yeah, definitely. Emphasis on the sand part. Costopolis, absolutely. It's like, do they have like a melange spread? You know, like they have like a mayo, like a melange aioli spread? I bet they fucking do. Like, I bet they fucking do. She goes to her work table and studies her topo map, little flags sticking into it, threads, green threads on push pins. And O'Drade had once asked her if this was preferable to a projection. I need to touch it. O'Drade accepted that. Projections palled, too far removed from dirt. You could not draw a finger down on a projection and say, we will go here. A finger in a projection was a finger in empty air. Eyes are never enough. The body must feel its world. And that's how I feel about books. I have a hard time reading like a Kindle or a Nook or a whatever the fuck, like I just like, I need to touch it. I need to touch it. It's not enough. A hot guy comes in looking for Wally, but leaves, seeing when she is not alone. And Wally is kind of like, what the fuck are you doing here, Shiana? Like, do you not trust me? Like, I'm doing great here. I'm holding down the fort. She tells her I came to consider what the missionaria still thinks I may do. They see a weapon, the myths of Dune. Billions pray to me, the Holy One who spoke to the divided God. Those worshippers believed I died with Dune. I've become a powerful spirit in the pantheon of the oppressed. What might happen if I appeared in that waiting universe, a sandworm beside me? The potential of such a thing fills some of my sisters with hope and misgivings. With me as a fulcrum, what a lever they would have to move the universe. Wally asks how they could hope to control such a force. Shiana admits religions are never really controllable, but some sisters think they could aim a religion built around her. They say religions of women always flow deeper because within us, life renews itself. Women bear the aura of underdog. Humans reserve a special sympathy for ones at the bottom. I am a woman, and if honored matres want me dead, then I must be blessed. Wally wonders if Shiana agrees with the missionary. It's like, well, sounds like you're kind of on board with this, Shiana. When you're one of the hunted, you consider any path of escape. I am revered. I cannot ignore the potential, nor the danger. So my name has become a shining light in the darkness of honored matre oppression. How easy for that light to become a consuming flame. No, the plan she and Duncan have is better. We're going to escape Chapterhouse, baby. Wally doesn't understand why Shiana is here still, and Shiana blames it on her fascination with the worms while thinking of leading her migration and how she will need worms for her migration ASAP because the ships are returning from battle. Shiana suggests to Wally that they reconvert the Great Hold in the No Ship into a desert lab with sand, flora, fauna, and a controlled atmosphere so that she can observe the worms at Central. Shiana leaves at sunset and walks the sands into the night and sees the fiery arcs of ships returning in the starry skies above. What message would they bring? Shiana takes a deep breath and repeats the litany against fear and continues walking the desert using the rhythmless method of her ancestors, thinking how she once believed she'd never have to walk this way ever again. Remembering one of the tyrant's poems, Shiana suddenly feels she's won a chance to become the ultimate artist, filled to overflowing and presented with a blank surface where she might create as she wished, an unrestricted universe. Shiana's migration will seek the new. But first, she must find a planet with moons. I miss my moons. I'm from Dune. I need my moons. I was like, I'd say that. I was like, oh man, Chapterhouse doesn't have a moon? That sucks. I would need a moon as well. A little reapplication here. Chapter 44. Dar liked apples. Back on Chapterhouse. Marbella is filtering their defeat at Junction through the lens of other memory. She's angry, speaking to the Dar within. I said they could turn victory into defeat, and look at the mess you dumped in my lap. I was lucky to save as many as I did. Marbella thinks back on the scene she had observed from the No Ship. Streggy slumped on the floor in bloodless death, with Teg sprawled out on the floor. O'Drade staring in shock. All right, F in the chat for Streggy. You know, I kind of like wanted Streggy and like, you know, Miles to grow up, and then him and Streggy kind of like, I mean, I guess he's an old man now, whatever. But I mean, you know, I don't know. I had a thing like Streggy and Teg would be cute together. Knowing Dar's plan, she lays it out for the Proctors, who allow her to fly down to Junction from the No Ship in a one-man lighter alone. She lands and is confronted by a squad of honored matres led by an older woman who reminds her of a lizard. In true Bene Gesserit fashion, Marbella only tells them the truth during her interrogation. Marbella is my name. I was taken captive by the Bene Gesserit on Gamu. True. I am an adept of the Hormu. True. I have learned everything they had to teach, and I have brought that treasure to my sisters. True. I escaped from one of their No Ships, and I know where their nest is. True. Her former sisters warily accept this explanation, but are still sus. The escort probes her further as they walk from the ship, testing her with questions about her Hormu commander. When she provides all of the correct answers, they proclaim that they will take her to the Great Honored Matre. On their way, one of the entourage continues to question her, and Marbella responds by killing the questioner with one Hormu-style kick. Any other questions? Nobody has any other questions. As they continue to walk, Marbella is struck by this squad. I know they are dangerous in any position. Yes. The Old Girl Network had never gained a foothold in the Bene Gesserit, but it performed for honored matres. Simulflow amused her with a parade of confirmation. How subtle the power transfers. Right school, right friends, graduation and transfer onto the first rungs of the ladder, all guided by relatives and their connections, mutual backscratching that managed alliances, including marriages. Simulflow told her it led into the pit, but the ones on the ladder, the ones in controlling niches, never let that worry them. I love that he calls it, the old girl network instead of the old boy network. If you've never heard that term, the old boy network, which is, essentially like, people who are born in and through nepotism and stuff, like get in and do this and that and do well in their lives. And it's like, and I understand, like, the frustration of being born outside the old boy network. It's like, oh, I know your brother and I'll help you get a job at this place and I know this guy and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like, nepotism is a very human thing. Like, you want to help those people that in your family and help people that you like and people that you know. So it's like, it's neither good nor evil. It is just a thing. But it can be frustrating when you're not in the old girl network. I was not born in the old girl network. They make it to Logno, and the new Great Honored Matre does not appear to be pleased by Marbella and her gifts. Teg is in the corner wrapped in Shiga wire. Odrade is standing unfettered near the Great Honored Matre to illustrate the Reverend Mother's powerlessness. So this is the bag of insolence you say you trained in your ways. Odrade almost smiles at this description. It's like, yes, this is the bag of insolence. I love that. It's like, you can say that. You could say she was a fucking bag of insolence for sure. Marbella notices, hey, Bean. Oh, are you coming to join us again? We've had so much Bean today on the show. Marbella notices the agitation amongst the honored matres and understands that they have exhausted their secret weapon in this gambit. She allows her muscles to flow into that waiting stance of combat that she learned from Duncan and the Bene Gesserit. No, we're not gonna lay on the keyboard, but you are gonna come say hello. Hi. Oh, you're so talkative today, Bean. You're so happy. I know. We're glad to have you here. You have anything else you want to say to the internet before we keep going? Okay. I know, being like, I want attention. I know she's taking Streggy's death pretty hard. She's like, I don't care about any of this. Because I want my pouch. Where's my pouch, Mom? She understands that the honored matres have exhausted their secret weapon in this gambit. She allows her muscles to flow into that waiting stance of combat that she learned from Duncan and the Bene Gesserit. Odrade has taught her well, and it is go time. First, Marbella hits them with the voice in scathing tones. I see you have assessed the Bene Gesserit quite poorly. The arguments of which you are so proud. These women have heard them so many times. Your words go beyond boredom. You consider yourself power and cleverful. One begets the other, eh? What idiocy. You are a consummate liar, and you lie to yourself. Logno is stunned, and her coterie begins backing away from her, recognizing the challenge that is being issued. Your fluency in these lies does not hide them. Like the ones I know in other memory, you are headed for extinction. The problem is that you take so infernally long dying. Inevitable, but oh, the boredom meanwhile. You dare call yourself great honored matre? Everything about you is a cesspool. You have no style. Oh, Logno can't take it. She attacks with a kick, and Murbella catches her foot, swings the woman like a club, and pulps her head on the floor. Then she almost kicks the head off of the aide who stood to Logno's right, while simultaneously crushing the throat of the woman to the left. Murbella killed these three in less than 2 heartbeats, and she isn't even breathing hard. Unfortunately, Elpec, the commander who brought Murbella, has snapped O'Drade's neck during the fight. The woman mistakenly thinks that she will be praised for this action, but instead, Murbella goes to the corpse and leans her head, adding all of Dar's new experiences since their last sharing. F in the chat for my homegirl. Darwee O'Drade. We love you, girl. You're the best. You're the best. You're one of the greatest Atreides of all time. You and Miles Teg. You guys are the best. Once she is done uploading, Murbella kills the woman with a kick to the larynx. She commands them to release Teg, clean up this joint, and get me a proper robe ASAP. The one who brings the elaborate robe tries to attack Murbella, but gets dumped on her ass and named the first member of Murbella's council. You want to try it again? Nope. Okay, that's what I thought. Teg comes up, and the others are astounded that she's letting him live. The new great honored matre explains, Miles serves her now. Isn't that right, Miles? And she says it in O'Drade's mocking tone. Interesting times, Murbella. Dar liked apples. See to that. Miles nods, and he will go and have her buried under an apple tree in the Bene Gesserit orchards on Chapterhouse. Not that the orchards are going to live much longer, but it's the thought that counts. Alrock, did you not read before you came today? Are you just now finding out that Murbella is now both the Reverend Mother Superior and the Great Honored Matre? Oh my lord, you're wild and Alrock. All right, chapter 45. Pretend to love them. Murbella picks her Honored Matre entourage and returns to Chapterhouse with futars to attract handlers. She has sent a message ahead explaining all of this and that the Honored Matres were driven back due to a biological weapon that turned them into vegetables, which may have come from the handlers. She also lets them know about the rabbi and his party and asks for them to prepare to keep them in the no ship and honor their secrecy. Oh, and remove the mines from the no ship as well. Murbella is tempted to ask for her children back, but she's like, that's super not Bene Gesserit, and, maybe someday I can ask for them, but right now I'm just going to let it slide. Upon returning, she immediately goes to Duncan, and her Honored Matre circle is hella confused. Now that the Honored Matres are no longer a threat, Idaho can leave the ship, but refuses, saying, I have a mental mosaic to assemble, a piece that cannot be moved, extraordinary behavior, and willing participation in their dream. I must find the limits to test. That's missing. I know how to find it. Get in tune. Don't think. Do it. Murbella's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but okay. And senses that he has come to some decision and is refusing to share it with her, saying, I've accepted things. You must do the same. The new Reverend Mother Superior gets to work on her first morning back in her red Honored Matre robe. She summons Belanda, who takes one look at this and says that the only crisis she'd like to compare this one with is the advent of the tyrant. She's like, this is the only thing I can compare this with is when Leto came into power. This is how insane this is right now. Hold your tongue, Belle, unless you have something useful to say. Mean Mama Murbella is in the seat now. Belle asks if these are the changes that Dar had in mind. But it's like, wouldn't she know? Because she shared with Dar, but whatever. Marbella softens and promises to go over all of this shit with her later and asks her to admit the great honored Matre High Council. She knows the Bene Gesserit have to accept her as Mother Superior, and she knows that the honored Matres will temporarily accept her leadership as a political necessity. Belle ushers in the council, and Marbella immediately gets down to brass tacks. Our sisterhood was acting stupidly. You would have killed the goose. I like all those goose references. Don't you realize how desperately we need every one of these witches? We outnumber them so greatly that each of them will carry an enormous teaching burden. Not only am I your great honored Matre. Does anyone question that, by the way? Nobody questions it. But I am the Bene Gesserit Mother Superior, and they can do little else but confirm me in office. They will obey me. Compared to me, with what I acquired from them, the lot of you are miserable weaklings. Do any of you challenge that? Nobody challenges that. You are children with no knowledge of what you might become. Would you return defenseless to face the ones of many faces? Would you become vegetables? She's got them hooked with this bait, and she sees the submission in her counselor's eyes. Marbella thinks about the trap she's leading them into, the same one that Odrade led her into. Become fascinated with Bene Gesserit tricks. Learn them like a kid in a candy store, thinking you're stealing secrets from your captives, until one day, when you've learned too much and you're in too deep to escape, then you transform into a Bene Gesserit. Marbella thinks to herself about the 3,500 years of boredom experienced by the tyrant, and the Dar within speaks up. Give the tyrant some credit. It couldn't have all been boredom. More like a guild navigator picking his passage through fold space. Golden path and Atreides paid for your survival, Marbella. I didn't ask him to do it for me. He did it nonetheless. Sorry, Dar. He paid, and now I must pay. Ah, so you are a Reverend Mother at last. Oh, I love all this stuff. It sounds very Jesus. I heard a lot of this, like, he died for your sins in church, you know, and I love thinking of Leto as a Jesus-like figure who was crucified for 3,500 years in the body of a worm. I love it. I can't get enough. Angelica speaks up and asks what response the honored Matres should take with the witches. Marbella commands them to tolerate them and offer no violence whatsoever. Angelica questions whether that's an order from the great honored Matre or from the Reverend Mother Superior. Marbella cuts that shit down real quick with a threat to kill them all right here and right now. Who wants to test me? Nobody wants to test her. She keeps going, letting them know under no uncertain terms that she will not tolerate their bullshit and will fucking murder any filth that tries her. Is there any filth in this room? Now, this is the leadership that they recognize. You are my counsel. I expect wisdom from you. At least you can pretend that you are wise. Poor Marbella. And Marbella hates doing this little mean mommy dance for these women. It's tiring performance, switching gears between doing this great honored Matre bullshit and being a Reverend Mother. She realizes that there will be important decisions for the sisterhood and for herself, and that she realizes that there are important decisions for the sisterhood and for herself that she will have to make, but that her love for Duncan would prevent. Lady Jessica pops into her mind how this woman's plunge into love had caused waves that had all but engulfed the sisterhood. She feels pain in her heart at the thought of giving up her Duncan. She sends her counselors away and has a conversation with Dar in her other memory about Duncan, arguing back and forth about the inevitable decision that wrenches her heart. Odrade reminds her of the sisterhood's important task of guiding humanity onto a path of long-term survival. When she opens her eyes, Marbella finds Belanda there looking down at her, asking if she was just chatting with Dar, and warns the new Reverend Mother about trusting anything from other memory. how one can get lost in there for hours, and to exercise restraint. Be sure of your ground. One hand for yourself and one for the ship. The older woman tells her the lure and the novelty of other memory will eventually become old hat. Mother Superior takes this advice and scans Belanda's concise report, thinking of herself as the spider queen at the center of her web, twitching trigger strands called archives and analysis that make Belle come running with anticipation. She sees the wisdom and how Odrade employed Belanda, utilizing the woman's flaws and turning them into strengths. She finds the older woman amusing, but masks her enjoyment. But this new Belanda picks up on it anyways and asks if she finds it amusing to summon her. Marbella diverts Belanda's attention back onto the report. Belle sinks into her chair dog and they begin planning. Shiana has been studying the worms in the no-ship and says that there's a way to teach anyone to control them. They decide to keep Scytail, the rabbi, and his party under wraps and away from the Honored Matre Council. Belle comments on how she feels like she's talking to Dar, but with another voice right now, and Marbella laughs. Marbella, and I just want to say, hold on. Belle comments on how she feels like she's talking to Dar, but with another voice right now. And then Marbella makes like a little quip, and Belanda laughs at it. And it's like, Belanda's made so much progress as a human in this book. Like, she was such a fucking bitch. And she still is. But, like, she's able to smile and, like, laugh and, like, jokes, you know? Like, you know, she's made a lot of progress. And I'm very proud of Belle. Marbella spells things out for Belanda. Here's what you must spread among the sisters. We act with extreme delicacy while showing ourselves as people to admire and emulate. You honored matres may not choose to live as we live, but you can learn our strengths. It comes down to ownership. Honored matres are owned by things. I want that place, that bauble, that person. Take what you want. Use it until you tire of it. We go along our path admiring what we see. And there's our flaw. We don't give ourselves... Oh, well, then Belanda comes in. We go along our path admiring what we see. So Belanda's like, okay, so honor matres are owned by things. But the Bene Gesserit, we just look at it from afar and we just go, oh, that's nice. You know, we don't pluck the flower. We just acknowledge it and continue on our way. Marbella says, and that's our flaw. We don't give ourselves easily. Fear of love and affection. To be self-possessed has its own greed. See what I have? You can't have it unless you follow my waves. Never take that attitude with an honored matre. Belle asks, are you telling me that we have to love them? How else can we make them admire us? That was Jessica's victory. When she gave it all. So much bottled up by our ways, and then that overwhelming wash, everything given, it's irresistible. We don't compromise that easily, Marbella, nor do honored matres. Yeah, but that's the way of their bureaucratic origins. Yet, Belanda, theirs is a training ground for following the path of least resistance. Belanda says, you're confusing me, Marbella almost confuses her for Dar. Marbella says, have I said we should compromise? Compromise weakens us, and we know there are problems compromises cannot solve. Decisions we must make, no matter how bitter. Belle comes around. Okay, pretend to love them then. That's a beginning. It'll be a bloody union, this joining of Bene Gesserit and honored matre. Marbella suggests that they share as widely as possible because they may lose people while the honored matres are learning. Belanda calls it a marriage made on the battlefield, and Marbella stands, ending their meeting with an abrupt awareness. She sees the shape of Duncan's mental mosaic and knows his decision. It's funny too that the honor matres are like, she's telling them, like, pretend to be wise. Just pretend for me. And then, like, dealing with Belanda, it's like, can we just pretend to love? Just please, please. Please. All right. Chapter 46. I will go with you. Back on the no ship, Shiana warns Duncan that they need to move with extreme care. Marbella has forbidden her honored matres from entering the no ship, but the enemy is still here. Duncan games the system, speaking to the calm eyes and seeding dark thoughts into his watchers by asking questions of how long Marbella will be able to hold out against honored matre assassination. Shiana comes in later, feigning upset that he's bumming people out, and he reinforces the anxiety that he is sowing, pointing out Marbella is the only thing standing between the Bene Gesserit and disaster. The two go into a little playlet for their watchers, with Duncan asserting that he can't leave Marbella. Shiana leaves, and now it's her turn to take the next step in their escape, and she comes back later that evening after neutralizing all the Reverend Mothers on the ship. And by neutralizing, I don't think they mean killed or like chopped. It's like, oh, like you've like gotten them to get on your side, I assume is what he meant by that word. Duncan feeds the deception by calling Marbella, asking him when he will see her. She's obviously got her hands full in the projection and promises to see him in the next few days. After their call, he goes off about the danger that she's in. And now it's Shiana's turn again. The mines have been removed, and she has the key to reinstate the ship's flight controls. Duncan feels certain that Teg will be down with being kidnapped. He's like, he'll probably be fine with it. But he isn't sure how the Futars, Scytale, and the rabbi and his party will feel about all of this. He goes to bed nervous about the escape, but his watchers think that he's just nervous about his marvelous Marbella. And he is nervous, but he knows that his presence is a danger to her, and he loves her so much that he doesn't want that. In the morning, Shiana finds him and asks him to join her in the guard section, where a handful of proctors greet him. They've diverted the calm eyes in the room with simulation of them snacking and chatting. The whole thing has been staged to give him the choice to stay with Marbella or escape with them. The other Reverend Mothers explain that they are voting with their feet and are scattering in an attempt to save what they can of the Bene Gesserit, keeping it pure from Marbella's subversion and mixing with these honored matres. Idaho takes a deep breath and states, I will go with you. They ask him one more time if he's super sure, and even though there is grief written all over his face, he agrees to join them. He goes and he sits at his console and starts up the no ship. As they are entering fold space, Duncan sees the shimmering net and the old couple in the garden. He reads the old man's lips saying that they expected him. Oh no, Duncan is just now getting freedom, and he is not about to trade Bene Gesserit control for whatever these two assholes have in mind for his life. And he is not going wherever they are trying to take him. So he goes into the ship systems and dumps navigation, null fields, and star memory circuits along with his own data. And this is like while they are entering and going in fold space. The net thins and elongates, and the watchers vanish. How did I know that they would be there? He's not sure. Is it because he lives outside of time as they do? After emerging from fold space, he goes and finds Shiana at the flight control board in her quarters with the Reverend Mother Garimi. They do not recognize any of the star patterns on their projection. Shiana exclaims that they have lost all data storage. Duncan reminds her that they haven't. He's still got the data in his head. But it'll take years to even recover the essentials. What happened? Where the fuck are we? We're an unidentifiable ship in an unidentifiable universe. Isn't that what we wanted? Chapter 47. The Bitter Medicine. This one, we've talked a lot about balance in this book. We have another great header. There's no secret to balance. You just have to feel the waves. Very true. Back on Chapterhouse, Marbella has just realized Duncan's decision and thinks to herself, he must be stopped. She reaches for her comm board as Central begins to shudder with the no ship's takeoff. Belanda jumps to her feet. What the fuck? Marbella explains that the no ship has just taken off, and she stops Belle from trying to stop it. She's like, it's gone, girl. We gotta let it go. Belle figures out what just happened, and Marbella sighs. She had all of the curses of history at her disposal and wanted none of them. Oh. Now it's time to bury her grief in work. Burying your grief in work is a very human thing, and it does work for a while. I mean, eventually you have to face it, but when it's just too sharp and just too soon, just bury yourself in that work. At lunch, I will eat in my private dining room with the honored Matre counselors, and I want you present, Belle, and tell Duana we're doing oyster stew again tonight. Belle's like, again? And it's so cute because oyster stew is Dar's comfort food, and she's so entwined with Dar now that she's taking on Dar's favorite comfort food for herself. The Dar within tries to comfort her. Some waves throw you, Marbella, but you get back up and you go on with it. 7 times down, 8 times up. You can balance on strange surfaces. I know, Dar. Willing participation in your dream, Dar. I get it. Just my man's just left, okay. Marbella recounts eating with the honored Matre Council the night before in the Reverend Mother dining room. And Blonda's like, oh, so that's why I couldn't use my fucking dining room. She's like, look, I was trying to save your life, okay? Please shut up right now. She made her former sisters sit at a distance where she could observe their conversation by reading their lips, and finds them discussing this marvelous world that they've just acquired and how they want to emulate their leader by trying that stew that she's having. It's all going to plan. They want to try that stew. They want to try the voice. They want to try this, that, and the other. And eventually they're going to want to try the spice agony. And then it's like, okay, boom, you're fucking Bene Gesserit now, if you survive. Belanda makes her aware that Shiana has taken the Van Gogh with her, saying that she was just borrowing it, and Marbella is pissed, but not just at the Van Gogh, but at Duncan and Teg and Scytail going missing. We still have the axolotl tanks and Idaho cells from the kids, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Belle, once again showing her progress, asks Marbella if she's all right, with genuine concern. She's letting down, just like O'Drade was like, we gotta have a little bit more emotional flexibility here. She's doing it, and she asks, you doing okay, girl? Marbella goes back into work mode. After we've eaten, I'm taking my counselors on an inspection tour of Central. Tell my acolyte I'll want cider before retiring. More comfort food. Also, Dar likes apples. Let's get some apple cider in this bitch. Something sweet to end this bitter day. Belanda snaps back into her old ways and leaves muttering. Alone again, Marbella chats with other Dar, asking why they took the Van Gogh. What does Shiana intend? Is it the Missionaria scheme? Oh no, it's more than that. It's the next phase. Muad'Dib to Tyrant, to Honored Matres, to us, to Shiana, to what? The bitter medicine of Shiana future. Some will choke on that medicine, but the survivors may create interesting patterns. Chapter 49. You let them get away. And there's another header. Nice little, he's got so many good little zingers, little headers that are just perfect. Paired opposites define your longing, and those longings imprison you. So it's saying paired opposites, which is duality, which is the illusion of separation. This illusion of separation creates the prison of desire. We end with our mysterious old couple in their garden. Marty, the woman, accuses Daniel of deliberately letting Duncan and the others get away. He denies this, saying that he too was surprised. He knew Idaho could see them, but he didn't know that he could see the net. Marty is bummed. She had picked a great planet out for them that would really test their abilities. She's also wanted to study Scytale, but Daniel doesn't understand why, because all masters do is whistle at them, making them have to stomp them down, which sucks because masters are the ones who created them. They discuss how hard it is for masters to accept independent face dancers, even though it should have been a foregone conclusion. If you give a blank slate the ability to absorb personas, and they absorb enough of them, then of course they would evolve into their own people. These two have gathered a staggering number of personas and created a big ball of knowledge, which is much larger than even a Reverend Mother's other memory. Marty is sad that she won't get to play with those two Gola Mentats too. Daniel worries about what will happen to Scytale when he tries to play his little master tricks on Duncan, because that shit is going to blow up on his face real bad. And speaking of the master, he has all of those Gola cells in that tube in his chest. Daniel's like, good luck to them with those Golas, and continues pruning his roses. And that is the final chapter of Chapterhouse, Dune Club. Plagueworm says, this sounds like Frank accepting that this would be his final novel, but there was a 7th novel in the works. But even though this is the end of the saga, leaves us a bit of a cliffhanger, there was a afterword written in this book, and it's called Dedicated to Bev. In this chapter, it makes me cry every time I read it. It is the sweetest words that I've ever written I've ever read that someone's written about another person. And I just want to put out there that Beverly Herbert was a huge influence and factor. I mean, without Beverly Herbert, there would not be a Dune. It could never have been written without her. She took on the financial burden for years before allowing Frank to just focus on his writing, and so that he could get this book done. She believed in him so much that she was like, okay, in the late 50s, early 60s, she was taking on the financial burden of working while he stayed at home to work on his book. And it took 6 or 7 years for him to get this book done. I'm not sure how many of those years that she was just paying all the bills, but whatever. She believed in him. He made it happen. She was the inspiration for Lady Jessica. I love it that, he even in this afterword talks about how, Beverly gave it all, holding back nothing. But he says the same thing about Lady Jessica at the end of this book. She was also the model for Frank's appreciation of sophisticated naivety. In this afterwards, he talks about how he loved how she was just so open to the newness of everything. And we talked a lot about how he's always going on about that sophisticated naivety, whether it's through the Bene Gesserits using it or the Mentats using it. It's it's a thing that people need to have, that he wants to encourage in folks. And it's something that he saw in his wife. And he also used her philosophies in his work. He talks in this afterwards where she says, revenge is for children. Only people who are basically immature want it. And so, he literally took the things that she says about life and then works them into the novel. And that's only one thing. How many other things are there? You know what I'm saying? And she was also his #1 editor. She died in 1984, the year Heretics was published, and the year that Lynch's Dune came out. And Chapterhouse was published a year later in 1985. And Frank joined Beverly in death almost exactly a few days after the 2-year mark later. So, yeah, he dies almost exactly 2 years later than her at the age of 65. Chapterhouse was the final the last final single work that he published. So there's a short story collection called I that came out afterwards. And then there was a book that he wrote with his son, Brian, that came out in 1986. But Chapterhouse is like his last final big work that came out. And so, yeah, so I just want to say F in the chat for Bev and F in the chat for Frank. They were such a great team. Oh, I'm getting a little emotional. Their relationship is so cute. But yeah, he did have a good run. They both had a great run. And, I love that, she took care of him when he was writing. And then, he was able to make a bunch of fucking money. And then at the end of her life, when she was struggling with cancer and struggling the effects of from things that, she did to get rid of the cancer. And then she had 10 years of being very ill, and he was able to take care of her during those times. And it's just you guys are so cute. But here is the thing about, and also congratulations. You have completed reading Frank Herbert's Dune cycle alongside thousands of other Fremen warriors around the world. So thank you for traveling the sands of Arrakis with me over the years. And I just want to put this quote out here. I know that there was a Dune 7 that was planned. There was only a page and a half of notes that was found on a floppy disk in some, locked deposit box that his son Brian found later after his death. But I just want to say that Arrakis teaches the attitude of the knife, chopping off what's incomplete and saying now it's complete because it ended here. And even though there was a Dune 7 planned, I feel like this is a great ending for Dune. I think it's really great. It really works for me. I think that Daniel and Marty are analogs for Frank and Beverly, where there's these people who are outside of time, who are fucking with these characters, and that's been them, they are outside of the time of this novel, and they've been fucking with these characters for decades. I think that's really cute, and I think that the ending, even though it is a cliffhanger, it really works for me. And it's almost I don't know, it may be better to live in a universe where we never see the seventh one, because it's this is such a huge series, and it's how do you end it? How do you end it? So it's in a way, in my head, it's oh, I have all these ideas, and it's awesome, whatever it is, it's fucking awesome. And it's maybe having it end on the seventh book would not have been satisfactory. I don't know, maybe not as satisfactory as leaving it a little open-ended. But I do know that there's an interview with Norman Spinrad, and he talks about Dune 7. Somebody had asked him, about Frank Herbert, and he said, Frank kept going as long as the big money kept rolling in. Knowing Frank's political philosophy, I once asked him how he could keep writing this royalist stuff. He told me he planned to end the series with a novel that would transition to a fictional universe of democratic rule. Never wrote it, of course, and Brian and Kevin certainly didn't use any 7 notes, says Norman. But there are 2 books written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, supposedly using the Dune 7 notes, and those were turned into 2 books, Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Dune. I have not read either of those, and I don't plan to. I may read the plot synopsis on Wikipedia. Because I am I want to know, but I don't want to know, because I know it's not gonna be the same. I know it's gonna piss me off, and I don't want to piss myself off. But then maybe one day, I don't know, maybe I know I'm an Orthodox Herbertian. For those of you who have read them, I mean, I know there's some of them that are better than others because they've done a lot of different spin-off books. I've never read any of the spin-off books. I may break down one day, and maybe my heart will soften, and I'll try one. But I know I'm tempted to try 2, Chuck. But yeah, I hear Daiso says the prequels were okay. Please stream that wiki reading. I know. Well, we will do that. after we do some questions and answers, we can do that, and we can do that this evening. So we can find out what happens. You know, it's not canon in my brain though. Whatever, it's fan fiction. It's like it's Dune fan. I think of the Brian Herbert books as Dune fan fiction. So, you know, it's a little different. But yeah, so let's do a few questions and answers. Normally I kind of cut it off for YouTube, but I'm going to keep these are some of my questions that I just want to put out there. Besides, are you happy with the ending? So, you know, are Daniel and Marty in charge of the ones of the many faces? You know, where did they create the futars and the handlers? Did they drive out the honored matres? What do you think the seventh book would have looked like? How far in the future would the seventh book take place? Do you think the seventh book would have taken place like, oh, you know, we're still with Shiana and Duncan? Or do you think it would have been like another like super far reach? Because I feel like it would be like a far reach. Like I feel like we have to see the results of the bitter medicine of the Shiana future, and that would take thousands of years. So I would assume that it would take place thousands of years. But like, is Shiana gonna put on some sand trout skin? I don't think he would do that twice. Will they bring back the Atreides? They have all those Gola cells. They could bring Paul. They could bring Chaney. They could bring Gurney. They could bring them all back, you know. I hope they wouldn't do that. I don't think that he would do that, but I don't know. Maybe it would be nice to bring Paul back, and then he can just chill though. just let him have a nice life. Like give him and Chaney a nice planet, and like don't tell anyone who they are, and just let them do their things, and like not be a Kwisatz Haderach, and like not awaken those memories or something. I don't know. Yeah, I see a lot of you in the chat think that, you think that he planned to bring them back. But I mean, yeah, it's like, why would he have them in there if he wasn't going to bring them back? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would they, you know, it would be interesting to see, you know, end on these characters that we began with. I mean, that could be interesting, for sure. But yeah, so what other questions? So if Siona has the power of invisibility to prescience, so Siona from God Emperor, Shiana has the power of immunity to sexual bonding. So will she pair up like Siona did with Duncan? Will Shiana pair up with Duncan, and then they're going to pass her genetic heritage to their descendants, making it so that, you know, there will be a portion of the population who no one can ever use sexual enslavement to control them? You know what I'm saying? It's like, do you have the Siona gene markers? Do you have the Shiana gene markers? I think, you know, I feel like that would happen. I assume Tag will also father many children to breed the ability to see no ships into humanity as well. So I would assume in the seventh book that we would see a portion of humanity that would be immune to sexual bonding, and a portion of them that could see no ships. I assume they're going to go out, they're going to go find a planet, they're going to regroup, they're going to let their worms grow as Merbella works on subverting the honored matres into Bene Gesserits, and then eventually Shiana will return to the Million Planets later and spring some missionaria business. Because it's like, you gotta have like big sandworms, you know, you can't just come with like a little guy, you know, like you gotta have like a whole planet of them. But then that would take so long. So like, is she gonna make Golas of herself? Is she gonna try to put on the sand trout skin so that she can like work for a long time and like to really see this through? You never thought they planned to return. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're like, fuck it, we're just going to start our own scattering. Because she does talk about her own migration. So maybe she's going to start her own scattering and never come back to the Million Planets and never do the Missionaria scheme. But she is very tempted by the Missionaria scheme for sure. Would the new hybrid Bene Gesserit support a Shiana Missionaria scheme, or would the two clash if she did come back? I mean, if she's still with the Bene Gesserit, and then they're a different type of Bene Gesserit, like, I'm not sure if they would get along or not. I guess it just depends on their different goals. But yeah, so, and then, yeah, and then what will happen with the new Bene Gesserit and the ones of many faces? Because if the honored matres are subverted, then the ones of many faces, I would assume, would not have a problem with them because they're no longer enslaving people through sexual bondage and being terrible and taxing everybody and like being like a nightmare bureaucracy. So like I assume that would like solve that problem. There's just a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions. But I like asking them and thinking about them, and I think it's super fun. But do any of you out there think that she would put on the sand trout skin? Do you think she would go for it? It would be. There's a part of me that would love to see a goddess, a god emperoress, because that would be funny in my brain. But like, I just don't like. I think you can't do that trick twice. You know what I'm saying? Like, we already did that. I don't think we're doing that. But yeah, a lot of you think that she would not do it. Yeah, me neither. All right, well, that's it for Dune Club. We're gonna do more questions and answers on Twitch, but for those of you on YouTube, this is the end of our journey, and it's like words can't even convey. What a special journey. An honor. It's been doing this with you guys, and thank you for supporting this club and supporting me. It's been so much fun talking about Dune with all of you, because I really don't have any friends to talk to about Dune. You know what I'm saying? So, thank you for supporting and being there and being interested and asking me questions and letting me ask you questions. I just feel very honored. I'm just very happy. It's just, like I said, it's hard to put into words, you know? And I just feel like what we've done together has been very important. I mean, not like hugely important, but like, it is like a public service. And, I'm just happy that we were able to do it. And to be able to help a bunch of people like get into such a cool series and read like, how many fucking pages have you guys read? I mean, this is so much. Like, I've asked so much of you guys. I asked so much of you guys and you did it. And like, I'm so proud. And like, you guys did so good, Because this is a lot. This is a big ask. Like, this isn't like a small thing to ask of people. It's to be like, hey, let's read thousands of like really dense fucking hardcore sci-fi together over like 7 years, And like so much has changed and there's just been so much evolution and progress and over the years, and it's just like I'm in such a different place than I was, but like I don't know, like it's all been for the better, I mean, there's been ups and downs, and I just feel like we've just shared a lot of life together through these book clubs. Like there's just so much like, we've really like been together through some shit. So it was a really amazing journey, and I'm just so pleased and very honored and very proud. And, I'm just so happy that we could do this together. So thank you. I love you. I love you guys so much. And I don't know what the next book club will be or what exactly where we're going. I'm sure there'll be something at some point. I don't know. I'm not a Quizette Hatterack. I don't know the future. I'm not going to make Paul's mistake. But I'm sure that I will see you in the future doing some other fun things, and I can't wait to figure out what those other things are, other fun things that we're going to do together and read together. So next year I do plan to just focus on making a documentary and do that, but I'll still be here on Twitch and doing some other things around the internet, so I'm not going to be gone, but I don't have any plans for a book club right now for next year, but there probably will be one at some point. I don't know. I'm sure there's something else that I would like really want to share with you guys, so be on the lookout for that. And I know Donnie says, Mystic Monday, come back, please. I know I have been thinking, I'm not going to lie to you. I have been thinking about doing like a Mystic Monday type podcast. Like, I think that would be really fun. So there may be a podcast. I don't fucking know. The universe, we live in a universe of possibilities. So there's so many different things. But I hope to see you, all again whenever those things line up and we're able to do something new together. So I love you all, and I will see you guys in the future. Mwah.